The huge alien ship blocked out the sun above Earth like a giant metal mountain floating in space. The ship was so big that people on the ground could see it with their own eyes without any telescopes. Children pointed up at the sky and asked their parents what the dark shape was. The adults did not know what to say because they had never seen anything like it before. Inside the alien ship, Ambassador Park Min-ho walked down a long metal hallway. His black shoes made soft clicking sounds on the cold floor. The walls were covered with strange symbols that glowed red in the darkness. Two tall alien guards walked beside him. Their skin was gray like stone, and they had 4 arms each. The guards did not speak, but their heavy breathing sounded like steam coming out of a machine park. Min-ho was not afraid, even though he was the only human on the entire ship. He had spent many years learning how to stay calm in dangerous situations. His job was to speak for all humans on Earth, and he took that job very seriously. The aliens had sent a message 3 days ago saying they wanted to talk. The message was simple but scary. They said Earth had one chance to join their empire or be destroyed. The hallway ended at a massive door that was twice as tall as Park Min-ho. The door opened with a loud grinding sound like metal scraping against metal. Inside was a room the size of a football field. The ceiling was so high that Park Min-ho could barely see the top. In the center of the room was a long table made of black metal. On one side of the table sat the most frightening creature Park Min-ho had ever seen. General Vextar was huge even when sitting down. His body was covered in thick gray skin that looked like armor. His head was the size of a car, and he had 4 red eyes that glowed like burning coals. His mouth was full of sharp teeth, and when he breathed, smoke came out of his nose. 2 smaller aliens sat on either side of him. They wore uniforms covered with medals and carried weapons that crackled with blue electricity. Park Min-ho walked to the other side of the table and sat down in the single chair that was waiting for him. The chair was made for humans and looked tiny compared to the alien furniture. He placed his hands on the table and smiled at General Vextar. The alien general stared at him with all 4 eyes and made a sound like an angry lion. "Your species is weak," General Vextar said through a machine that changed his words into human language. His voice sounded like rocks falling down a mountain. "We offer you a place in our great empire, and Earth sends only one man. Where are your armies? Where are your warships? Where are the soldiers who will fight for your planet Park?" Min-ho opened his briefcase and took out a small tablet computer. He set it on the table and looked up at the giant alien. "I am all Earth needs for this meeting," he said in a calm voice. His words echoed in the huge room. General Vextar laughed, and the sound was so loud that the walls seemed to shake. "One human against my entire fleet," he said. "You think this is funny? You think you can make jokes when your planet is about to be destroyed? My ships have weapons that can crack planets in half. I have 1,000,000 soldiers who have conquered 100 worlds." The other aliens in the room began making harsh sounds that Park Min-ho realized was their way of laughing. They thought it was silly that Earth had sent just one person to negotiate with such a powerful enemy. General Vextar stood up from his chair, and Park Min-ho could see that the alien was at least 3 times taller than him. The general walked around the table until he was standing right next to the human diplomat. "I could crush you with one hand," General Vextar said as he held up a massive fist. Each finger was as thick as Park Min-ho's entire arm. "Your bones would break like twigs. Your people must not care about you very much to send you here alone." Park Min-ho did not move or show any fear. He looked up at the towering alien and kept smiling. "Actually, General, my people trust me completely. They know I can handle this situation. And I am not alone, even though it might look that way." "What do you mean?" the general asked as he stepped back. You are one tiny human on a ship full of my warriors. There is no one here to help you if things go badly. Park. Minho touched his tablet and a soft blue light came from the screen. Let me tell you something interesting about humans, he said. We have been the weakest creatures on our planet for most of our history. Lions could eat us, tigers could kill us with one swipe, bears could crush us like you said, but somehow we ended up ruling the entire world. That is impossible, General Vexstar said as he sat back down in his chair. How could weak creatures like humans beat stronger animals? Park Minho smiled wider. Because we learned something that no other species on Earth ever figured out. We learned that being smart is better than being strong. We learned that working together makes us powerful. We learned that the best weapon is not claws or teeth or muscles. The best weapon is making friends. The aliens looked confused. They had conquered many worlds using their superior strength and advanced technology. The idea that weakness could become strength made no sense to them. General Vexstar leaned forward and stared at Park Minho with his burning red eyes. You speak in riddles, human. What friends could help you now? You are millions of miles from your home planet surrounded by my fleet. Even if your Earth sent rescue ships, they could not get here in time to save you, Park. Minho checked his tablet and nodded. That is true, General. My planet could not send help fast enough, but I do not need help from Earth. I have help from much closer than that. In fact, my backup has been here the whole time. Where General Vexstar demanded, looking around the empty room. I see no other humans. I see no hidden soldiers. Park Minho stood up from his chair and walked to the giant window that showed the stars outside. He pointed at the alien ship they were standing in. You are looking at it, he said. General Vexstar stared at Park Minho with confusion and anger growing in his 4 red eyes. The human was speaking nonsense. How could an empty room be his backup? How could this tiny, weak creature think he had any power against the mighty Crimson Fleet? The general slammed his massive fist on the table, and the sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. You mock me, human! He roared. Steam poured from his nose, and his sharp teeth gleamed in the dim light. I have destroyed entire civilizations. I have turned planets into dust. My warriors have never known defeat. Yet you stand there smiling like you hold some secret weapon. Park Minho walked back to his chair and sat down calmly. He touched his tablet, and images appeared in the air above the table. The hologram showed planet Earth as it looked millions of years ago. Thick forests covered the land, and dangerous animals roamed everywhere. Lions with huge teeth chased smaller creatures across the plains. Giant bears stood twice as tall. As humans, sharks the size of school buses swam in the oceans. Look at this, General Park, Minho said, pointing at the floating images. This was Earth long ago. Do you see any humans in this picture? Do you see us ruling anything? General, Vexstar squinted at the hologram with all 4 eyes. He could see the deadly predators, but no sign of the weak little creatures that now called themselves the masters of Earth. Where were your people then? He asked. Park Minho touched his tablet again, and new images appeared. Now the hologram showed early humans hiding in caves. They looked scared and helpless. Their bodies were small and soft. They had no claws, no sharp teeth, no thick skin to protect them from danger. When night came, they huddled together around. Small fires, while terrible roars echoed from the darkness outside. There we are. Park Minho said, we were the weakest species on the planet. Everything wanted to eat us. We could not run as fast as deer. We could not fight as well as tigers we could, not fly like birds or swim like fish. If you had visited Earth back then, you would have laughed at the idea that humans could ever amount to anything. The alien officers around the table began to understand. They could see how pathetic early humans looked compared to the mighty beasts that surrounded them. General Vexstar nodded his huge head. So how did you survive? He asked. Why did the strong animals not wipe you out completely? Park Min-ho smiled and touched his tablet once more. The hologram changed to show humans working together. Some were making tools from rocks and sticks. Others were building better shelters. Groups of humans were hunting animals much larger than themselves by working as a team. They surrounded mammoths with spears and brought down the giant creatures through cooperation. We learned to use our minds instead of our muscles. Park Min-ho explained, "We could not beat a lion in a fair fight, so we made weapons that could kill from far away. We could not survive the cold, so we learned to make fire and warm clothes. We could not run fast enough to catch deer, so we learned to make traps and work together." The images kept changing, showing humans discovering agriculture, building cities, and creating art. They tamed wild wolves and turned them into helpful dogs. They learned to ride horses and sail across oceans. They built machines that could do the work of 100 men. But our greatest discovery was not any tool or weapon. Park Min-ho continued, "It was learning that when humans work together, we become something much more powerful than any individual. We learn to share knowledge to help each other and to solve problems as a group." General Vextar was becoming impatient. This history lesson was interesting, but he did not see how it threatened his mighty fleet. "So you learn to cooperate," he said. "Many species work together in groups. My own soldiers follow orders and fight as units. This is nothing special." Park Min-ho stood up and walked closer to the general. "You are right that many species can work in groups, but humans took cooperation to a completely new level. We did not just work with other humans. We learned to work with other species entirely. We made friends with animals that used to be our enemies. We turned wolves into loyal companions. We made horses carry us places we could never reach on foot." The hologram now showed humans in the modern age living alongside countless other species. Dogs and cats lived in their homes. Horses helped them work. Birds warned them of danger. Even some wild animals had learned to trust humans and seek their help when injured. Then we went to Space Park. Min-ho continued, and we brought this same spirit with us. When we met other intelligent species, we did not try to conquer them. We tried to understand them. We offered to help solve their problems. We traded knowledge and resources. We made friends. General Vextar was growing more confused by the minute. "What does this have to do with your backup?" he demanded. "You are still alone on my ship. Your friends from other species are not here to help you." Park Min-ho returned to his chair and picked up his tablet. "Actually, General, they are here. They have been here all along. You just have not realized it yet. Tell me something. When was the last time your ships had major technical problems?" The general thought for a moment. "Our fleet runs perfectly," he said proudly. "We have the best engineers in the galaxy. Our systems never fail. When did you last upgrade your computer systems?" Park Min-ho asked. "About 1 year ago," General Vextar replied. "We installed the latest quantum processors and efficiency software. Our ships now run 30% better than before." Park Min-ho nodded. "And who designed those upgrades? Who wrote the software that makes your ships run so well?" The general paused as he tried to remember. "The work was done by our technical staff," he said slowly. "But they used some new systems from the Galactic trade network. The improvements came from several different species working together." Park Min-ho touched his tablet and new information appeared in the hologram. It showed technical specifications and design credits. At the bottom of every page were small symbols indicating human involvement in the development. Those quantum processors, Park Min-ho said, were invented by a human scientist named Lee Yuna. The efficiency software was written by human programmers working on 12 different worlds. The navigation systems use algorithms, developed by Kim Ji-soo at the Galactic Technical Institute. General Vextar stared at the floating text with growing alarm. Impossible, he whispered. Our ships are purely alien technology built by our own people, Park. Minho shook his head gently. General, in the past 50 years, humans have spread across the galaxy. We do not conquer worlds like some species. We go where we are invited, we offer to help solve problems, we make things work better. And slowly, without anyone really noticing, we have become part of the systems that keep this galaxy running. The general looked around at his officers, who were now checking their own equipment with worried expressions on their faces. Each device they examined showed some trace of human involvement in its design or construction. You see, General Park Minho said we learned long ago that the best way to protect ourselves is not to build the biggest weapons or the strongest defenses. The best protection is to make ourselves so useful that no one wants to hurt us. When you become essential to everyone around you, you become impossible to destroy. General Vextar felt something cold creep up his spine as he stared at the evidence floating before his eyes. Every system on his magnificent warships had human fingerprints all over them. The computers that guided his weapons, the engines that powered his fleet, the life support systems that kept his crew alive, all of them had been touched by human hands and human minds. This cannot be true, he said, but his voice was quieter now, less confident than before. My engineers would have told me if aliens were working on our most important systems. Park Minho touched his tablet, and the hologram changed to show a massive network spanning across the galaxy. Thousands of bright points connected by thin lines of light stretched from one side of the display to the other. Each point represented a world or space station. Each line showed communication and trade routes between them. Meet the Human Diaspora Network, Park. Minho said with pride, "This is what 50 years of human expansion looks like, but we did not expand like conquerors. We expanded like helpers." The display zoomed in on different sections of the network, showing humans working alongside aliens of every description. Human doctors treated sick. Xanthari children. Human engineers repaired broken Korthak mining equipment. Human teachers helped young Vexlani learn mathematics. Human diplomats solved trade disputes between species that had been enemies for centuries. We go where we are needed, Park Minho explained. When the Corvin Plague struck the Outer Rim worlds, human medical researchers worked day and night to find a cure. When the Great Solar Storm knocked out communications across 3 sectors, human technicians restored the networks. When the Drak Mori and Yelik were about to go to war over mining rights, human negotiators helped them find a peaceful solution. General Vextar watched the display with growing horror. He could see human faces in every corner of his empire, working in his factories, managing his supply chains, teaching in his schools, even serving on the crews of his military vessels. Your own ship, General, has 17 humans working on different decks. Park Minho continued. Dr. Kim Subin runs your medical bay. Engineer Park Jiho maintains your quantum core systems. Technician Lee Minjae keeps your communications array functioning properly. They have been here for 2 years, and your crew thinks of them as family. The general slammed his hand on his communicator. Connect me to Dr. Kim Subin immediately, he ordered. A few moments later, a calm female voice responded from the speakers. Yes, General. What can I do for you today? Dr. Kim Subin asked, in perfect Crimson Fleet language. Her accent was barely noticeable after 2 years of working with the alien. Crew, how long have you been working on my ship? The general demanded. 2 years, 4 months, and 16 days, she replied. Why do you ask? Is there a problem with my work? General Vextar looked at Park Minho, who was smiling patiently. No, doctor, there is. No problem. Continue with your duties. The communication ended and silence filled the chamber. That woman has saved the lives of 43 of your soldiers, Park Minho said quietly. She has worked 16-hour days during battle emergencies. She has shared meals with your crew and learned their customs. She even learned to sing traditional Crimson Fleet songs. Your warriors would do anything to protect her. The general felt his confidence crumbling like sand in the wind. "How many humans are there?" he asked in a whisper. "How many of you have infiltrated our systems?" Park Min-ho shook his head. "We did not infiltrate anything." "General." "We were invited. Every human working in your empire was asked to come. Your people needed doctors and engineers and teachers and negotiators. So we came to help. We always come when someone needs help." The holographic display shifted to show communication logs from the past 3 days. Since the Crimson Fleet had appeared above Earth, messages had been flying back. And forth across the galaxy, human workers on alien worlds were reporting the situation to their friends and families. Other species who had human employees were asking questions about the threat to Earth Admiral Zethrax of the Silver Fleet wants to know why you are threatening his human medical staff. Park Min-ho read from his tablet. "Commander Vorthak of the Mining Guild is demanding an explanation for your hostile actions against the humans who keep his refineries running, the Galactic. Trade Council has called an emergency session to discuss the situation." More and more messages were appearing on the holographic display. Diplomatic protests, defense pact activations, economic boycott threats, even individual alien citizens were sending angry messages about the threat to their human friends and co-workers. General Vextar looked around at his officers who were all staring at their own communication devices with expressions of shock and fear. The entire galaxy seemed to be turning. Against them, reports were coming in from every corner of Crimson Fleet territory. Sir came a voice from one of his communication officers. "We are receiving demands for explanation from 47 different species. The Galactic Defense Alliance has activated Article 7. The merchant guilds are threatening to cut off all trade with our territories. 3 different fleets are moving toward our borders. What is Article 7? The general asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. "Automatic. Mutual defense triggered when any member species faces unprovoked aggression." The officer replied, "All Alliance members are required to provide military assistance to Earth." If we attack, Park Min-ho stood up and walked to the great window overlooking space. In the distance, other ships were becoming visible as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Sleek silver vessels bearing the markings of a dozen different species, all moving toward Earth. "Those are not warships coming to conquer Earth." Park Min-ho said, "Those are friends coming to help. The Andromedan science vessel Harmony, bringing their advanced shield generators, the Korthak Heavy Cruiser Brotherhood offering their defensive capabilities, the Zenthari hospital ship, Mercy coming to provide medical support if needed." General Vextar watched in amazement as more and more ships appeared. Each one belonged to a different species. Each one was coming to stand with humanity, not because they feared humans, but because they cared about them. How the general whispered, "How did you do this? How did one small species make the entire galaxy care about them, Park?" Min-ho turned away from the window and smiled. It was not magic, General. It was not some elaborate plan. It happened naturally, because of who humans are. We see someone in trouble, and we want to help. We meet someone different from us, and we want to be friends. We find a problem, and we want to solve it. The communication system was now overloaded with incoming messages. Alien leaders demanding explanations, civilian populations expressing support for Earth, military commanders offering assistance. The entire galaxy had become aware of the situation, and almost everyone was taking humanity's side. We built this network one friendship at a time. Park Min-ho continued. One act of kindness at a time. One problem solved at a time. Every human who went to space carried with them the same basic human instinct to help others, to make friends, to build bridges instead of walls. General. Vextar sank back into his chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he was seeing. His mighty fleet that had conquered 100 worlds was suddenly facing the combined opposition of nearly every major power in the galaxy. And it had all happened in just 3 days. You asked where my backup is. Park Min-ho said gently. You are looking at it. The entire galaxy is my backup, because when you threaten one human, you threaten all the humans. And when you threaten humans, you threaten everyone who has learned to count on us. The massive communication console in General Vextar command chamber was lighting up like a festival display. Every button flashed red with incoming urgent messages. The sound of alerts and warning chimes filled the air as reports poured in from every corner of Crimson Fleet territory. The general stared at the chaos with growing panic, as his empire seemed to be falling apart around him, so reported one of his communication officers. The Galactic Banking Consortium has frozen all our trade accounts. They say they cannot process transactions for a species that threatens human civilians. The Merchant Guild has canceled all shipping contracts to our territories. The Medical Alliance has recalled all their doctors from our worlds. Another officer stood up nervously. General, our fuel supply stations in the Outer Rim are refusing to sell us antimatter. They say their human staff members are too upset to work. The crystal mines of Zerion have shut down completely because they're human. Geological experts have gone on strike. Park Min-ho watched the chaos unfold with a mixture of sadness and understanding. He had not wanted things to escalate this quickly, but humans throughout the galaxy were reacting emotionally to the threat against their home world. They were not following orders from Earth. They were simply doing what humans always did when their family was in danger. General Park. Min-ho said quietly, Perhaps we should discuss this situation more calmly, before things get even. More complicated, General Vextar looked up from the flood of bad news with desperate eyes. In just 3 hours, his mighty empire had been crippled not by enemy weapons, but by the simple fact that humans had become essential to everything. The species he had dismissed as weak had somehow made themselves so important that the galaxy could not function without them. How he asked in a voice that was barely a whisper. How did this happen? We are the strongest military force in this sector of space. We have conquered worlds that other species thought were impossible to defeat. Yet you have brought us to our knees without firing a single shot. Park. Min-ho sat down across from the general and folded his hands calmly. It began 50 years ago when the first human exploration ships left Earth. We were curious about what was out there in the galaxy. We wanted to meet new people and see new worlds, but we were also scared because we knew we were not the strongest or most advanced species. Holographic display showed early human space exploration, small ships carrying tiny crews to distant worlds. The humans in the images looked nervous but excited as they made contact with alien civilizations for the first time. When we met the Andromedans, they had a problem with their food production systems. Park Min-ho continued. Their crops were failing and they were facing starvation. Our agricultural experts offered to help. Within 6 months, we had developed new farming techniques that doubled their harvest. The display showed human farmers working alongside tall blue aliens in vast agricultural complexes. The humans were teaching the aliens about crop rotation, soil improvement, and pest control techniques. The Andromedans were amazed by how much their yields improved. When we encountered the Korthak, their mining operations were incredibly dangerous. Park Min-ho went on. Many workers died in accidents every year. Our safety engineers studied their methods and suggested improvements. The death rate dropped by 70%. The images changed to show humans in mining gear working deep underground with bear-like aliens. The humans were installing safety equipment, teaching emergency procedures, and redesigning dangerous mining techniques. Every species we met had problems that needed solving. Park Min-ho explained. And humans love solving problems. It makes us happy to help others fix things that are broken or improve systems that are not working well. We never asked for payment. We never demanded control. We just wanted to help. General Vextar was beginning to understand the scope of what had happened. Humans had not conquered the galaxy through military might. They had conquered it through usefulness. They had made themselves so valuable that no one could imagine living without them. But why, the general asked, why would you help people you barely knew? Why would you care about alien problems that had nothing to do with Earth Park? Minho smiled sadly, because that is what humans do. General, we cannot help ourselves. When we see suffering, we want to stop it. When we see inefficiency, we want to improve it. When we meet strangers, we want to become friends. It is just our nature. The communication alerts were still flooding in. But now they were changing tone. Instead of angry demands for explanation, many of the messages were offers of help. Defense fleets were positioning themselves to protect Earth. Medical ships were bringing supplies. Diplomatic vessels were requesting permission to mediate the crisis. Look at your own crew. General Park Minho said, do they seem afraid of their human colleagues? Do they act like they are working with dangerous infiltrators? General Vextar thought about Dr. Kim Subin, who had worked tirelessly to save his soldiers during the Battle of Zerion Prime. He remembered Engineer Park Jiho, who had stayed awake for 3 days straight to repair critical systems after a meteor strike. He thought about Technician Lee Minjae, who had learned to speak perfect Crimson Fleet language and had even started dating one of his navigation officers. They love their human co-workers, the general admitted quietly. They treat them like family members. They trust them with their lives, Park. Minho nodded. That is how it works. General, humans do not try to take over systems by force. We become part of them. We make ourselves useful. We earn trust and friendship. And before anyone realizes what has happened, we have become essential. The holographic display now showed the current state of galactic civilization. Humans were represented as small blue dots scattered throughout the galaxy, but they were connected to everything they served on the crews of alien starships. They ran hospitals on distant worlds. They taught in schools. They managed trade routes. They served as diplomats between species that did not trust each other. We are like the glue that holds the galaxy together. Park Minho said, you could remove any single species from this network, and things would continue to function. But if you removed humans, everything would start falling apart. Supply chains would break. Medical systems would fail. Diplomatic relationships would collapse. Communications networks would become unreliable. General Vextar stared at the display and finally understood the full scope of what he was facing. He was not just threatening Earth. He was threatening the stability of galactic civilization itself. Every species in the galaxy had become dependent on human expertise, human friendship, and human problem-solving abilities. The irony was overwhelming. His species prided themselves on being conquerors who took what they wanted by force. But humans had conquered more territory and influenced more lives than any warrior race in history, and they had done it by being helpful. You never intended to take over the galaxy, the general said with amazement. Park Minho shook his head. No, General, we never planned any of this. We just did what comes naturally to us. We helped where we could. We made friends where we were welcome. We solved problems that needed solving. The takeover happened accidentally because being useful and friendly turned out to be the most powerful force in the universe. The communication console chimed with a new message. This one was different. It came directly from the Galactic Council, the governing body that represented all major spacefaring civilizations. The message was simple and direct. The Council demanded that General Vextar withdraw his fleet immediately and report to the capital world for questioning about his unprovoked aggression against humanity. Any delay would result in immediate military action by the combined forces of the Galactic Defense Alliance General. Vextar looked at Park Minho with a mixture of respect and defeat. You have won, he said simply. Without firing a shot, without building a single weapon, you have defeated the most powerful military force in this sector, Park. Minho stood up and extended, his hand in the human gesture of friendship. We do not want to defeat anyone, General. We want to help you find a better way. Your people are strong and disciplined. They could do amazing things if they used their abilities to build instead of destroy, General. Vextar stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Then slowly he reached out with one massive claw and gently shook the human hand. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Park Min-ho said with a warm smile, "we figure out how to turn your warriors into the greatest peacekeeping force the galaxy has ever seen." General Vextar sat in his command chair staring at the flood of messages still pouring in from across the galaxy. His mighty Crimson Fleet that had never known defeat was now surrounded by ships from dozens of different species. All of them had come to protect Earth. All of them were demanding explanations for his actions. The general felt smaller than he had ever felt in his life. The door to the command chamber opened, and Admiral Corvin, his second-in-command, entered quickly. The admiral was breathing heavily and his forearms were shaking with nervousness. "General," he said, "we have a serious problem. Our supply lines have been completely cut off. The Galactic Trade Network has blacklisted us. No one will sell us food, fuel, or medical supplies." Another officer approached with more bad news. "Sir, our communications with the homeworlds have been blocked. The Galactic Communications Authority says we are in violation of the peaceful contact protocols. They have suspended all our long-range transmissions." Park Min-ho watched the reports come in with genuine sadness on his face. He had not wanted the situation to escalate this far, but once the galaxy learned that Earth was being threatened, the response had been swift and overwhelming. Humans throughout space had stopped working. Their alien friends and co-workers had stopped everything to demand action. The entire galactic economy was grinding to a halt. "General Park," Min-ho said softly, "this does not have to continue. Your fleet could withdraw right now. Return to your territory, and this crisis will end immediately. The galaxy will forgive and forget if you choose to walk away." General Vextar looked up at the human diplomat with confusion. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you offer me mercy? I have threatened your entire species. I came here to destroy your world if you did not surrender. Yet you speak of forgiveness." "Park." Min-ho walked to the great viewing window and looked out at the gathering fleet of alien vessels. They were not attacking or threatening the Crimson Fleet. They were simply waiting patiently for a peaceful resolution, because holding grudges and seeking revenge only creates more problems. General Humans learned long ago that it is better to turn enemies into friends than to destroy them. The holographic display showed scenes from human history wars that had ended with peace treaties, enemy nations that had become close allies, former battlefields that had been turned into places of cooperation and trade after World War II on Earth. Park Min-ho explained our species could have spent decades seeking revenge against our enemies. Instead, we helped rebuild their countries. We shared our technology and resources with them. Within a generation, our former enemies had become our closest friends. Admiral Corvin stepped forward uncertainly. "But surely there must be consequences for our actions," he said. "We threatened Earth. We brought weapons of mass destruction to your solar system. How can you simply forgive such things?" Park Min-ho turned back to face the aliens. "Because punishing you will not solve anything. It will only create bitterness and resentment. Your people are warriors, but they could be so much more than that. The galaxy needs protectors, not conquerors. It needs peace, keepers, not destroyers." The communication console chimed with an incoming priority message. This one came from the Andromedan Council, the Korthak Mining Authority, and the Zenthari Medical Federation, all speaking together. They were offering to mediate the crisis and help find a peaceful solution that would benefit everyone. "Look at this," General Park Min-ho said, pointing to the message. "Your former victims are offering to help you find a better path. They could demand punishment, but instead they are extending friendship." General Vextar read the message with amazement. These were species that his fleet had conquered or threatened in the past. They had every right to seek revenge, yet they were offering assistance and cooperation. Instead, He began to understand that this was how the human-influenced galaxy operated. Problems were solved through cooperation. Not conflict, but what about my warriors, he asked. Finally, what about my people? They have been soldiers for 1,000 generations. They know only how to fight and conquer. How can they change their entire way of life? Park. Minho smiled and touched his tablet. The holographic display showed human military forces working alongside alien peacekeeping units. They were protecting refugee convoys, stopping pirates, and providing disaster relief on damaged worlds. Your people are strong, disciplined, and brave. Park Minho said, those are exactly the qualities needed for peacekeeping and humanitarian work. The galaxy faces many threats. Pirates, raiders, natural disasters, even some remaining hostile species. Your warriors could become the protectors of innocent people instead of their conquerors. The images showed Crimson Fleet soldiers working alongside humans to evacuate civilians from a volcanic eruption. They showed alien warriors learning new skills like medical aid and engineering repair. They showed former enemies working together to solve problems and help those in need. Admiral Corvin was studying the displays intently. It would be honorable work, he said slowly. Protecting the weak instead of destroying them. Building instead of tearing down. General Vextar stood up slowly and walked around the command chamber looking at all the evidence of human influence on his ships. Systems. Every computer, every tool, every improvement that made his fleet more efficient had human fingerprints on it. Yet the humans had never tried to control or manipulate his people. They had simply made things better. You are offering us a choice, he said to Park Minho. Join your network of cooperation or remain isolated and irrelevant. Park Minho shook his head. No, General. I am offering you something better than a choice. I am offering you a chance to become part of the greatest alliance in galactic history. Your people would not lose their identity or their strength. You would use those qualities to help build a better galaxy. The communication console announced another incoming message. This one was from Earth itself. It was a simple video message from the human government addressed to General Vextar. Personally, Park Minho activated the display, and a middle-aged human woman appeared in the hologram. General Vextar, she said, I am President Lee. Hana, speaking for all the people of Earth. We understand that you came here believing you were doing what was best for your people. We hold no anger toward you or your warriors. We invite you to visit Earth as our guests, to see how different species can work together in peace and friendship. The message continued with an invitation to a cultural exchange program. Crimson Fleet officers could spend time on Earth learning about human society, while human advisors could help the fleet transition. From a conquering force to a peacekeeping organization, Admiral Corvin was openly amazed by the generous offer. They are inviting us to their homeworld, he said, the planet we just threatened with destruction. They want us to come as guests. Park Minho nodded. That is who humans are. General, we believe that every species has something valuable to contribute to the galaxy. Even those who start as enemies can become friends if given the chance. General Vextar felt something changing deep inside him. He had spent his entire life believing that strength came from conquest and control. But looking at the evidence before him, he could see that humans had achieved more power and influence through friendship and cooperation than his species had, gained through centuries of warfare. The galaxy outside the window was no longer a collection of enemies to be defeated. It was a community of different species working together, each one contributing their unique strengths to solve common problems. The Crimson Fleet could become part of that community instead of fighting against it. What would you have us do? Park Minho asked the general. What choice will you make? General Vextar looked around at his officers who were all waiting for his decision. He could see hope in their eyes. They were tired of endless wars and constant conflict. The chance to use their strength for protection instead of destruction appealed to them. "We choose friendship," he said finally. "We choose to become protectors instead of destroyers. We choose to join the greatest alliance in galactic history." 6 months had passed since the tense confrontation above Earth, and the universe had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The same command chamber where General Vexstar had once threatened to destroy humanity now served as a planning center for the most ambitious peacekeeping project in galactic history. The dark metal walls were covered with holographic displays showing construction plans, rescue mission schedules, and diplomatic progress reports. Admiral Vexstar no longer wore the blood-red uniform of a conqueror. Instead, he was dressed in the deep blue colors of the Galactic Peacekeeping Alliance. The new uniform bore symbols of cooperation and protection rather than conquest and domination. His 4 red eyes, which had once burned with anger, now shone with purpose and pride as he studied the latest reports from across the galaxy. Beside him sat Chief Engineer Lee Yuna, a young human woman who had become one of his closest advisors. She was reviewing the technical specifications for their newest project, a massive hospital ship that was being built from the converted hull of a former battleship. The weapon systems had been removed and replaced with medical equipment, rescue shuttles, and research laboratories. "Still cannot believe how quickly this transformation happened," Admiral Vexstar said, as he watched construction crews working on the new ship through the chamber viewing window. "6 months ago, I was planning to conquer worlds. Now I am helping to save them." Lee Yuna laughed warmly as she made notes on her tablet. "That is the power of having a purpose that makes you feel good about yourself. Admiral, when you were conquering worlds, you were following orders and maintaining discipline. But you were not happy. Now you wake up every morning knowing that your work makes life better for millions of beings across the galaxy." The Admiral nodded thoughtfully. He had been amazed by how eagerly his warriors had embraced their new role as protectors. Instead of resenting the change, they had thrown themselves into learning rescue techniques, medical aid, and disaster relief procedures. Their natural strength and discipline made them excellent at their new duties. Through the viewing window, they could see former Crimson Fleet soldiers working alongside engineers from a dozen different species. Human technical experts were teaching alien workers how to install the new medical equipment. Andromedan scientists were sharing their advanced healing technologies. Korthak construction teams were using their natural strength to move heavy machinery with careful precision. The door to the chamber opened and Dr. Kim Subin entered, carrying a stack of medical reports the human doctor had become the chief medical officer for the entire reformed fleet, and her calm professional demeanor had earned the respect of every species in the Alliance, Admiral. She said with a smile. "I have the casualty reports from the Zerian rescue operation, Admiral." Vexstar took the reports eagerly. 3 weeks ago, a massive earthquake had struck the mining colonies on Zerion Prime. The old Crimson Fleet would have ignored the disaster or perhaps tried to profit from it, but the reformed Peacekeeping Alliance had responded immediately, sending rescue ships and medical teams to help the survivors. 0 fatalities among the rescue teams. Dr. Kim reported 47 miners pulled alive from collapsed tunnels, 36 serious injuries treated successfully. On site, the Zerian government has officially requested that we establish a permanent peacekeeping station in their system. Admiral Vexstar felt a warmth in his chest that he had never experienced during his conquering days, when his warriors had destroyed cities. He had felt only empty satisfaction at completing a mission. But when they saved lives, he felt genuine joy. The transformation had been more than just changing uniforms and procedures. It had changed who they were as people. Chief Engineer Lee Yuna pulled up a holographic display showing the current status of peacekeeping operations across the galaxy. Former Crimson Fleet vessels were now stationed at 53 different locations, providing security for trade routes responding to natural disasters and mediating conflicts between different species. The amazing thing, Admiral, she said, is how much the other species trust us now. 6 months ago, everyone was afraid of the Crimson Fleet. Today, refugees specifically request our protection because they know we will keep them safe. Admiral Vextar walked to his old command chair and sat down, but his posture was completely different from the threatening stance he had once maintained. Now he sat like someone who was comfortable. With his role as a helper rather than a conqueror, the change was so complete that even his own officers sometimes forgot he had ever been their enemy communication officer. Park Ji-ho approached with the daily status report. Admiral, we have received 17 new requests for assistance today. A diplomatic crisis on Andrax 7, where we are asked to provide neutral mediation. A pirate attack in the Outer Rim, where merchant vessels need protection, and a request from the Zenthari medical fleet to help evacuate a research station before a solar storm. Hit's Admiral Vextar reviewed each request carefully. Under the old system, he would have looked for ways to exploit these situations for personal gain. Now he was focused entirely on how his people could help solve problems and protect innocent lives. Send the diplomatic team to Andrax. 7, he ordered. Deploy Battle Group Gamma to hunt down those pirates and prepare the rescue shuttles for the evacuation mission as his officers hurried. To carry out the orders, Admiral Vextar reflected on how much his life had changed. He commanded more ships now than he had ever controlled as a conqueror. The peacekeeping alliance had grown to include vessels from 20 different species, all working under his coordination, but the greatest change was not in the size of his fleet. It was in how people reacted when they saw his ships approaching. Dr. Kim Subin sat down across from him and pulled out her tablet to review the medical supply. Inventory, Admiral. She said, I have been thinking about something Park Min-ho said during our first meeting. He told you that humans conquered Earth not through strength, but through cooperation. Admiral Vextar nodded. I remember. He said that humans turn their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. That is what you have done, too. Dr. Kim continued. Your people were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Everyone feared your strength and discipline. But now you have turned those same qualities into the foundation of the greatest peacekeeping force in history. Your warriors fight just as hard as they always did, but now they fight too.